Welcome one, welcome all. Don't you just hate it when you have a really good idea for a project and you just start working, you even get an early draft done, and then you just give up? That's me trying to think that my first video on this channel could be a 7-hour-long documentary on the history of 7-figure prizes on American game shows. For my first video. And that I could get it done by June. To be fair, I do have something written up, but I haven't looked at it since August, and yeah. Desperate to say that I started this channel in 2020, at 1 a.m. this morning, I was channel surfing. I stumbled upon this channel called Get TV. Now, if I were to rate the odds of TV getting me on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say the chances are pretty low. But surprisingly, it did get me off guard, with a rerun of Catch 21. If you haven't heard of Catch 21 before, essentially it's blackjack, but it's modified with trivia and 3 players. Was it ever a show that knocked my socks off? Well, judging from the looks of things, no. However, I do remember switching the channel from CBS right after The Price is Right ended, and tuning into GSN. Some combination of Alfonso having fun, the dealer playing up the drama, and the oversized deck just resonated with me. That's when inspiration hit. I know enough about the 2009 version of the show to make a 10-ish minute YouTube video, and I really couldn't find anyone else who's done so. In addition, I just signed up for Philo, so I have access to the recent reboot of Catch 21. I could easily compare the two versions, give facts, back it up with my opinions, and wrap it up with a nice closing statement. I just reinvented rhetoric. Take that, Pluto! Now, I'll be the first to admit that I haven't watched every episode of Catch 21. For that reason, I'll be comparing the two versions that I can easily and legally find on either TV nowadays or on online streaming services like Pluto TV. This video is not the history of Catch 21. I will not be talking about Gambit, the other blackjack-like game show made by the exact same company, or the Casino pilot. In addition, since I couldn't find any full episodes of Season 1 of Catch 21, which played functionally the same as the Season 2 and onward of Catch 21, but had a completely different set, that will be left out of this comparison. This is solely based off of Season 2 and onward of the original run, which started in 2009, against the 2019 reboot. So, let's dive straight into the very first thing the viewer sees, the title sequence. The original series run had an intro that looked like this. The 2009 version played various clips of excited contestants over the years. Now, it could have just been a generic clip show, but it goes over the top for a couple of reasons. First, the clips are literally in the cards, subtly introducing the casino theme. But secondly, although the clips change from season to season, the 3 clips zoomed into always start with Alfonso, then pan over to Mickey on the other side, before finally ending on the contestant in the center before zooming into the logo. It's a subtle way to introduce the host, but in the end, focus the attention to the players. I love when a title screen is subtle like this, and it doesn't need to actively proclaim, "Here's your host!" So why would they need to mess that up for the 2019 version?
It's time to play Catch 21. Please welcome your host, Alfonso Ribeiro, and your dealer, Whitney Carson.
That's pretty groovy.
Yeah, that was a nice...
Although I think that the introduction is a little less inspired than the 2009 version, the wide shot shows a set that's much more vibrant. If I were to show you the contestants' podia from 2009 and 2019, and ask you which one was played for blackjack, 99% of the time they'd say the 2019 set. Frankly, the old set could have just been any generic 3-player game show, including Temptation, instead of something like Vegas. I also understand why there's a little dance number at the end of the title sequence. It's another way to get the audience and contestants hyped up. Although I'd argue that it's slightly worse than the clip show, because Alfonso and Whitney don't necessarily dance throughout the episode, mainly at the beginning and maybe at the end. It does its job. I also had a paragraph ready about the flat design of the 2019 logo being more modern than the rich design a decade ago. But no one cares about the word skeuomorphism. It's long, it's scary, and it doesn't have an A. After the hosts are introduced, the focus shifts to the contestants. In the 2009 version, all 3 contestants were interviewed by Alfonso before the first round. And then Alfonso would specifically talk to the one with the most interesting tidbit at the beginning of round 2. In the 2019 revival, Whitney gives a short blurb about the contestants to start faster, and then Alfonso interviews all 3 in depth before starting round 2. Nothing to note here besides the fact that they changed dealers between the 2 versions, but they both play the same role of wishing for big money at the start of the game, being a bubbly presence while presenting the cards, and smiling pretty for the camera. Now, let's jump into the gameplay, shall we? The gameplay stays relatively the same for both versions of Catch 21. The game has 4 rounds. There's 2 qualifying rounds with all 3 contestants. A contestant is eliminated, and then the 3rd round is a head-to-head between the 2 remaining contestants. The winner of that 3rd round plays a bonus round for $25,000. In the first 3 rounds, a dealer draws a card to each contestant. The contestants then play a trivia question, and whoever gets that question right gets to decide who gets the next card on top of the deck. The person who gets closest to 21 exactly, without going over, wins the round. The format's roughly the same, but the Joker, however, is in the details. First, the questions in the original version were multiple choice with 3 answers, while the current run drops the choices and just has a short answer response. For example, compare these 2 random questions I took from the 2009 and 2019 versions.
Which of these search engine names is defined in Roget's Thesaurus as an unrefined, rude person? Google, Yahoo, or Lycos?
Yahoo!
That is correct!
Yes! What Queen of Soul was the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Deanna.
Aretha Franklin.
Is it Aretha Franklin? That is correct.
All right.
Deanna.
You're going to hear this a lot from me, but it simplifies the game even further for the 2019 version to just go to short answer. However, I'm not necessarily a fan of this because it removes a couple elements of strategy. Because the choices were dropped, the 2019 questions had to be simpler and less verbose than the 2009 questions. Meanwhile, a large amount of the 2009 questions had some hint to laterally come to the answer, and allowed a contestant to buzz in before the choices that they really knew. I think the only GSN original on air right now to have some form of lateral thinking would be the penultimate round of Masterminds. So having a question writing that incorporated that into Catch 21 would have helped with the bare bones trivia format. Second, the 2009 version had a point system for the first 2 rounds. 100 points for getting a question right and 500 points for winning a round. After 2 rounds of play, the 2 players with the most points go on to the 3rd round, which didn't have points. Meanwhile, the 2019 version removes the point system entirely and just has the winners of the first 2 rounds move on to the 3rd round. And it does a tiebreaker question with a game of war if the same person won the first 2 rounds. This is another change to simplify the game, and I'm torn on how this was dealt with. On the one hand, the points did feel tacked on in the original version. Like, sure, there's points in Mega Man 1, but who the heck plays Mega Man 1 for the points? On the other hand, it technically does allow a person who's been getting the trivia questions right, but have horrible luck, a backway door into round 3. Which I appreciate more from a gameplay perspective. I guess I'd prefer the simplified version a little bit more, just because it's less confusing for a viewer, but just barely. Another thing gone is the advertisements throughout the episode. Although I'll say good riddance to the lens crafters interrupting the gameplay, or the Burger King power chips where you can have it your way, the show also took away the bonus for reaching 21 exactly in any of the rounds. Although it was never a major prize, there was an opportunity for the first person to reach 21 exactly to win something like a $599 vacuum, or even a $500 bonus donation during Celebrity Week. I thought that was a nice thing to have, and they could have just had an extra power chip in the reboot. The bonus round roughly remained the same across both iterations. Based off the browser game, a person plays 3 hands and tries to get 21 on as many hands as possible. The more hands they match without going over, the more money the contestant wins. In the 2009 version, the contestant received $1,000 just for winning the game, and then independently won another $1,000 if they can match 121 hand in the bonus round, and then $5,000 for 2, and then the grand prize of $25,000 for all 3 hands. Technically, this allows for an over $26,000 payout if they got a perfect 21 before the bonus round, won the game with the $1,000, and then won the entire $25,000. The 2019 version simplifies this with the money ladder, with the bottom row being the $1,000 won for beating their opponents, then $2,500 for 121, $5,000 for 2, and $25,000 for all 3. If this game sounds impossible to win to $25,000, that's because it practically is. It happens a couple times a season, at most. So to compensate for this, the show gives the contestant 1 power chip for each round of the game they win. The 2009 version always gave a player an additional power chip for winning the game, and even for the last season, they gave 2 power chips. Meanwhile, the 2019 version was actually a little more on the budget side, where they didn't even give a bonus chip for winning the game until late into the 60-episode run. And besides that, that's it for Catch 21. In my opinion, the new Catch 21 attempts to replicate the charm of the old show with a streamlined game and presentation and a sleek set. I see that they come close to reaching the same levels of past 21, but all the little things that changed ultimately made it very slightly worse than the 2009 version. However, I'd say this is really slight. If I were to rate the 2009 version a 7 out of 10, the 2019 version would be a 6.9, which is still a nice score. Well, till we meet again, guys, I'm just a man of the hours, and it's certainly been fun, but I'm afraid my time has ticked down to none. Let me just check my Notes app if I missed anything. Why does the Notes app look like a notepad anyways?